Good afternoon. I have here a decision, and I wanted to share kind of broadly some of the things that I think are important about it. It concerns an under 50 person with physical only found impairments. Okay. And these are really, really hard to win unless it's really egregious, like wheelchair bound. The evidence has to be so strong as to how that person would be taken out of an 8-hour day enough during a month to make it unacceptable. So I just wanted to share with you, and again, this is an under 50 person, okay? I'm going to read, it's what's paragraph 5, probably almost always, but maybe not necessarily always, where the ALJ describes the RFC he found for the claimant. This one says, the claimant has the residual functional capacity to perform sedentary work as defined under so-and-so code. And if you want me to read that, it's 20 CFR 404.1567A, except the claimant can occasionally climb ramps and stairs, but never climb ladders, scopes, ropes, and scaffolds. By the way, that part is not going to make someone disabled. That limits the availability of all those 12,000 jobs to something far less, but it's not going to make them disabled. The claimant can occasionally balance and stoop, but never kneel, crouch, or crawl. Again, I'd say the same. That's not going to take someone out and make them disabled. But coming up is what is really helpful. Two things I think that follow are really, really important. The first noted is he is limited to occasional reaching in all directions bilaterally. This is important, and this was something we focused on because a lot of times the reaching is only about reaching overhead. And a lot of things will just talk about cannot reach overhead more than rarely or never, or occasionally. And because most sedentary jobs, or at least a lot of them, do not require that you reach overhead more than occasionally. So being able to reach at least occasionally, but not more, isn't going to carve those jobs out. However, it says reaching in all directions bilaterally. So doing things in front of him, right, are limited to occasionally. Occasionally is 0 to 1/3 of a workday. It's considered very little. Sometimes I think it's quite a bit, actually, when you think about it, 2-3 hours. But that was really helpful because it was a sedentary RFC, which was noted above. And a lot of sedentary jobs, I believe, are going to require bilateral use of the hands in front of you for various, different kinds of tasks. And it would require that frequently or better. So I think the fact that it was limited by the ALJ to he can only do it occasionally, helpful. The last thing, this is really big because this is not apparently in the DOT with the descriptions of jobs and what they require, but it comes up at pretty much every hearing I ever have. If the ALJ doesn't bring it up, I'm going to, and I think you should too, if the shoe fits. The claimant requires unscheduled breaks, resulting in more than 20% time off task and more than 2 absences per month. The claimant requires unscheduled breaks, resulting in more than 20% off task during each workday on average, and more than 2 absences a month. So that whole thing I just shared to you is the RFC. And so then during the hearing, it went on to ask the ALJ asked the vocational expert if that person could do the prior job. No. And could he do any other job? The answer is no. This is why we knew this was going to be a great outcome. But I wanted to, now that we have the ALJ's RFC carved in stone, emphasize those last 2 parts. And I'll even specify even more, the 20% off task and more than 2 absences per month. If you can prove that to an ALJ satisfaction, those kind of off-task amounts and absences, you're going to have a really good chance of winning no matter what your age. You could be 18, you could be 50 or above. That's because the theory goes that that level of not performing the job and being off task or not around or not doing your job would be intolerable to employers generally. And therefore, the person would be fired in short order, right? How much time do they give you when you keep doing that? So there are different ways to try to prove off task. It's going to have to come from the medical records combined with the testimony. So someone wants to be prepared to explain how often they have to go lie down during the middle of the day. Or if it's an emotional or mental challenge, how many times they are, how much of a day they would be exiting the workspace, maybe to go calm down or they're distracted by something. The 2 absences a month, some VEs will say more than 1 is too much. Here the judge is being safe and saying 2. But again, that comes to absenteeism. And as we know, we don't get that many sick days, right? So even 2 absences a month is 24 days a year. What employer is going to tolerate that with a new employee? Just saying. Anyway, if you can find ways to prove this through medical records, whether it's you're talking to your doctor about how often you have to go off task in your regular day at home to go lie down and take the pain off the shoulders, the neck, the legs, the feet, elevate due to swelling, if that's what your impairment is. Likewise, if it's anxiety or some other more severe mental health challenge that takes you off task, you have to go isolate, or tearfulness, maybe, where excessive crying takes you, out of your day for an hour or half hour here, half hour there. Whatever it is, I mean, I can't really go into, it's almost like the world is your oyster on this one. But if the shoe fits, if you are not able to put in an 8-hour workday with normal breaks, which is considered to be 15 minutes in the morning, half hour for lunch, and 15 minutes in the afternoon, if you would not be working at all times other than those, and if the additional amount that you would not be working is 20% of every hour or of the full day, and you can prove that that is likely through your medical records because of X, Y, and Z. And, if your doctors talk about things like this, and it's really hard to get them to do that, they're very kind of obtuse in their record keeping a lot of the time. But if they can elaborate on that, I think it can really help the evidence. And that is what we did. And it's not easy, and it's not a guarantee, but that is the only way in a lot of these cases to prove that someone's disabled. Because, I mean, part of our argument was also that the person couldn't do sedentary work because that requires 6 out of 8 hours in a, work type chair for the most part. And the lower extremities swell a bit. So sometimes I think when they say residual functional capacity to work sedentary, I think they're talking generally, but the fact that he's going to be off task for 20% kind of shows that he can't do sedentary all day. But anyway, that's might be splitting hairs, but it's kind of an inconsistency I see with the law and the way opinions are often written. But we had a fabulous result here, just got it today. I thought the hearing went really well, but I know how these cases go. So the best of hearings often will go the way maybe the law is designed to make them go. But we had a really good result here, and I was thrilled, and I got the pleasure of calling my client and letting him know. Anyway, so keep in mind about that off-task business and the absenteeism, and if you can get medical proof that would be likely uber important. Okay, hope that helps. Bye.